Hello, 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 and welcome to Poetry Prose, the Kevin Ross Emery Show with,
Ashley Olstein. How are you?
I was just telling you before we came on air, I did some really powerful healing energy work on a client. It made me a little giddy. I think I scared the poor woman uh, because I was like, okay. She was like, whoa, oh, okay. But, she once I finished, she had a very powerful experience, breaking that we broke through something and stuff like that. But it was, I don't know if you ever do that, because I do a lot of remote work. I don't know
Mhm.
how much remote work you do.
Yeah, some. Yeah, we're having trouble with the live streaming. I didn't want to interrupt you, but help, help.
So
Facebook help.
now I need to, nope. So I'm going to have to remove and re-add.
All right.
So
There.
now I'm going
That
to re-add, save changes.
looks good so far.
Of course, LinkedIn and YouTube can still see us. Hey, LinkedIn. Hey, YouTube. We're having Facebook difficulties, which is our primary streaming source.
Yeah.
And hello and welcome, Facebook. Catch up with LinkedIn and YouTube because they've got a leg up on you. Uh,
Exactly.
so,
You were saying that you'd done a little bit of you were a little high from a powerful healing with some remote work that you had done.
yep, it was close to 2 hours of remote healing work.
Oh, wow. Oh, I thought you meant like remote viewing, that type of thing. Yeah, I do a lot of remote work, but that must have been a 2 hour one.
Yeah, I mean, there was some interaction between us. Um, she was on Zoom, but most of it was darked out on mute. Uh, and I have certain pieces of like theta based waves and binaural beats,
Mhm.
chakra. I mean, I have certain pieces that I like to play while I go out and I do the work in the universe, in the body, in the person's all the person's energy bodies and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I mean, I have some clients that sometimes it's the majority of a 3 to 4 hour session is remote healing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I realize that. Yeah. You've done some healing on me for sure in person, and it's been intense, quick, and in person. So I can imagine a long, drawn out healing session would be quite something.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of healing sessions are usually the kind of healing session that I'm doing on people that have a degenerative or a terminal.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
when I'm doing a 3 or 4 hour session on somebody, you know, we're seeing, their experience of us going through and like addressing and talking to the organs and talking to the illness or disease and what it's doing and getting all of the spiritual, emotional, mental messages as part of the healing and doing that kind of interwoven, multi-layered kind of healing, you know, are having, like I've got a current client that I think is 3 years past her expiration date. Um, I had one client that I worked with very intensely, and he made 21 years past his expiration date.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
He was mismarked.
And he was mismarked by several hospitals,
Yeah.
including some very impressive ones that said, yep, nobody survives this.
Wow.
And it's like, well, so, I mean, when we can get into that zone, when the person is open and willing and willing to participate, because it's never like I just do energy work and oh boy, you're better. I mean, the whole Wei Chi thing is the Wei Chi healing thing is the client has to participate in their own healing. It needs to be interactive. And there is the healing part of it, but there is the part of it of we're digging out all the splinters that created the environment that allowed this to take place.
That makes sense.
So, anyways, so I'm still coming down a little. As you can tell when I signed in, I was a little like, woohoo!
I liked it.
Ah! Okay.
I like you a little high.
And I get high with a little help from my friends.
From your healing friends. Well,
Yeah,
that's good.
my healing clients. I get
Yeah.
high with a little help from my friends.
Well, that's what I love about healing also, though. It's you, the healer gets to participate and it feels good.
Yeah, at some point when we're doing one of the You and Me shows, we should really do a You and Me show on Wei Chi. And
Okay.
that healing system and kind of explain some of how it's different and how it approaches the world. And, anytime, I mean, I know that you're doing different kinds of advanced healings and stuff like that. And I mean, when we have guests, it's nice, but we don't need guests. I mean, we're both up to our eyeballs in different forms of spiritual healing, whether it's doing, teaching, learning, skateboarding in between, cartwheels in the heavens, whatever.
Yeah. All of the above.
All of the above, and even a few of the below, because some of my closest friends are living there now. So, yeah. I actually had this really interesting thing this week about really wanting to delineate the difference between learning about and being invited to join a religious or spiritual community versus the indoctrination that the majority of people go through. And, and I wondered if we could actually take the indoctrination out, how many of these major religions would still be major religions if it hadn't been that they forced into the ancestral line the trauma of if you don't accept my God, you will be tortured, you will be killed, like the only way to survive is to bend your knee at my version of iconology.
Right.
And then that gets passed on because the people who originally got converted by the sword out of fear through bullying and through, really sadistic people doing it in the name of God, that is something that can create generational ancestral types of trauma that it is instilled. The only way to survive is to accept this religious belief system.
It's funny that you bring this up because I was thinking about the healing that you did and, whatever you were working on. And my little spirit team behind me was saying like generational trauma was part of it. And I was going to say like, as part of the healing, as you're doing it, and I'm positive that you do, but you go in, and we've talked about this, but you'll go in and start doing some repair work and how intricate and complicated that is when you go back generations, DNA, and you're trying to unbraid some of this stuff that like splinters out because that's the shape of the family tree.
Yep.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. But this was two separate conversations about generational trauma, but they kind of go together, and it was popping into my head earlier.
Some of the, some of the cases, some of the people that I have worked with, I'm trying, I am tap dancing in anonymity for all my clients, but I don't want to make it, when I say cases, it feels like I dehumanize them, and I don't want to do that.
Totally get it.
Is that some of my most successful cases have included having to go in and do that generational healing and bring it back, bring it forward as part of the process.
Yeah.
So it is one of the strings that I pull on, because I pull on a lot of strings.
You? Yeah. No,
So-
religion is insidious. It can be positive, but most organized religions are they can cause a lot of trauma.
Most organized religions have the majority of the people that they do because somewhere along the way they forced people to accept it or die.
Yes.
And that in of itself is a huge wound.
Yes, Stacy.
Uh-huh. Hey, Stacy.
How are you?
Without fear mongering and bully, they would all be broke. I mean, I read this really powerful piece by a man named Jim Palmer. And I don't want to lose the thread of our show, so I won't.
We could.
Yep. But
that's fine.
At some point I may share it on air, and I'll give credit to the guy that wrote it, because obviously it will be clear that I didn't write it, just from where he introduces himself. But there is really the more you lean into understanding how traumatically the tribes of South America, of North America, that even the tribes of the original Celtic tribes and stuff like that, the horror show of trauma and abuse that went into accepting a religious icon as some version of a savior, tells us a lot. Why, because one of my new favorite terms is all the people out there that are CNOs. We hear of rhinos, Republican name only. That's what Trump came up. But CNOs are Christian in name only. They really don't have the first idea or concept of anything beyond maybe being able to spit out a repeated Bible verse, or repeat something that their pastor said, trusting that their pastor actually got it right, when we all know that their pastor, their reverend, their minister, whoever, most likely are telling them what they're telling them because that's what they were told. And it's all faulty text. And yet they adamantly have to cling and hold on to it, because some part of it knows that they're whispering, that what's whispering in their ear is lies. But they don't know where to go. And we have made it horribly socially unacceptable in this country. There's immediate blowback if you start a sentence with, well, I'm not Christian. I wasn't raised Christian. I mean, like, people will come at you like they're the hounds of hell. And since they're the hounds of hell, don't tell me they're talking Christian. They're not. They're talking to their own insecurity, their own fears, their own stuff.
Yes. Fear mongering. Back to Stacy's comment. It's bullying and fear mongering. Yeah.
So that actually makes me think of a poem I wrote called Hidden, which maybe will end up on our agenda tonight. But anyways, I digress.
That never happens.
And let's say happy Mercury direct day. Woo, 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 woo. I mean, it technically went direct a couple of days ago, but when it goes direct, what it actually means is it stopped going backwards, so it's stationary, and then it has to kind of like do the I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, and slowly start moving forward, which I gave everybody that I talked to from an astrological standpoint, September 1st, September 1st.
Mhm.
Think about this as moving forward. But don't forget, there is 5 other celestial bodies that are all retrograde right now. So the communications will open up and there are actions that will move forward, but there's still a lot of internal soul searching and trying to figure out where we are in the world, where you are in your world, and is it the world you want? And is there something that still needs to be corrected, adjusted, fixed, recognized?
Yeah. That sums up this week.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Funny.
okay. So should we actually kick the show off 16 minutes in?
Why not? Why not? So today we're going to take a little dive into some of Kevin Ross Emery's poetry. And I have read some, and admittedly, I could read more. So I'm excited to hear it. And I'm excited to hear it read by you and to hear where some of these pieces have come from and what they mean to you, and then have a conversation about it. But and I don't know a lot about where your poetry has come from. Like where is it coming from in you, and what's the story behind it? How did it fall into your life?
So one of the things, because I started writing poetry, I think I was still in junior high school. In fact, I'm pretty sure, because in 6th grade, I had one of the best ever teachers. She was my singularly best teacher of my whole career in every level of teachers I've had.
Remind me where you grew up.
So at this point, I grew up in Kittery, Maine.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I switched over my sophomore year of high school to Manchester, and then was there for a couple of years and graduated early because I couldn't get out fast enough.
You're kidding? High school wasn't fantastic for you? It's hard to believe.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Good Lord. All right. I didn't want to take you off topic. I just needed to picture where you were. So 6th grade, fantastic teacher.
So 6th grade, fantastic teacher. And she had this, and she's one of those teachers that I'm like, this is the person that should teach teachers to be teachers, because she did a contract method. And she was asking 6th graders, do you have any idea what you want to do, who you want to be, like what interests you, what's your passion? And then she would, ease up on subjects that didn't fall into it. You still had to go through them, but she didn't they weren't the focus. But she would then take if there were things that made sense, she would use that as, so if you want to do this is really important, and this is where you should focus your time, because this is going to give you that foundation to do that. And so she would kind of create contracts that, if you would meet this minimum level here, you could get an A, but you knew what you needed to do, and it was just enough because it really wasn't the subject in your area of interest or what you wanted to do. I mean, talk about fabulous teaching.
Yeah. Wow.
And when she asked me in 6th grade, she said, do you have any idea what you want to do? And I said, I want to be a writer. It's just like, I want to be a writer. I'm not even sure where that came from, Ashley. Like, I just was like, she asked me and I went, I want to be a writer. And so she worked with me. She gave me extra vocabulary words. She taught me how to diagram sentences. Part of my contract was I get easier assignments in areas that I was not as interested in. But I had to write a short story a week. I needed to, and so I left 6th grade testing with a third year level college vocabulary.
Oh, amazing. That's so cool. What a great way to nurture kids.
Yep. And
Wow.
I already had a love of words, but it went from a love to a passion for words. And in fact, it still kind of plays out today because some of the people I work with, and and I do teaching and I do all the one-on-one work and stuff that I do. Um, I have I have clients that if they start like really like swearing, they'll apologize to me because they're like, "You don't really swear much, do you?" And I'm like, "No, it really was back in the sixth grade. I'm like, there are a million words. Why should I be stuck on seven and just repeat them over and over again? It gives no meaning. It gives nothing. Like if I mean, I might say, and I don't even consider it swearing if I call somebody a little shit. I mean, I don't, but
It's descriptive.
it's descriptive. But to just be like, oh, F this, F that, or just like these guys. Now, if I am at a point where I am in a moment that I start hardcore swearing, people want to run for their lives.
Well,
Because
swearing is like my love language, so I apologize for all the past and future. Sorry.
no, I let people be who they want. When
Okay.
I'm working with kids, I say, do you want to be taken seriously? Do you want more control over your life? Do you want more power in your life? Learn good vocabulary words.
Yes,
Learn how to say things clearer, more concise. I said, adults and people in power will take notice. You will get further ahead.
absolutely.
And so, you know, and I know that I have influenced, through my 34, almost 35 years of doing this. I know that there are teenagers who moved away from profanity and into vocabulary because when they did that, they actually saw it made a positive difference.
Right.
There was a value, but we don't accentuate the positive value of words and wordplay and stuff. We use the punishment method of bad word, put a quarter in the jar, don't talk like that. And of course, now, it's such a generationally accepted thing. Like you can't, now it's cute when the kid repeats the swear word because the parent says it so often. And oh, isn't that cute? No, I kind of sort of think it's disgusting. I kind of think you're a bad parent. I think that your role modeling things are going to work against your child ahead in life like they can. And I think you're kind of selfish that you want to keep your child at a level where people are going to kind of think less of them. So I don't celebrate that at all. I don't think it's cute. I don't think, oh yes. And my little 3-year-old came up and and I
Mm.
got to call mommy blah blah and he didn't have any idea what he was saying. I'm like, you're an idiot. And it's not cute.
No.
And the dumbing down of America can't get much lower. So stop it. So, anyways, my love of but poetry came, short stories came. I actually started working on my first play in sixth grade. I didn't get very far with it. I got farther with a later play. Of course, my first play, I desperately wanted to be a musical, so I was trying to figure out how to write the songs for it. Sixth grade, right?
You needed a friend in band.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I started taking. So my aunt was a published poet when I was still a teenager. And she put out a book of poetry, and then she put out another book of poetry, and she ended up becoming a New England Poet of the Year, and she became a Maine Poet of the Year.
Nice.
And then my grandmother's second cousin was a poet and had a lot of books out and was actually poet laureate for JFK. So, um, and people, I mean, I would only hope to ever reach his fame level, but I'm not counting on it. Um, but that was Robert Frost.
Mhm.
So, you know, poetry, it's almost like it kind of almost runs in the blood, it runs in the system. I mean, and it's funny because I'm the only cousin I know of my cousins that actually has poetry books out, but I know a half a dozen of my cousins all write poetry private, and but don't ever like do anything with it or put it out to the world.
Right.
So I discovered the world of poetry, the National Poetry Society or whatever. I'm trying to remember what the name is. It was so long ago, and I submitted my first poem when I was 17, and I got an honorable mention.
Nice. That's exciting at 17.
And then at 18, I did a poem, and I got Silver Poet of the Year. So I actually won a more of a award. And then I got a Gold Poet of the Year for a poem. I got a poem that was the gold. Got me the gold because they had honorable mention, silver, gold. I think was all they had at that point. But I would keep submitting things and stayed involved. And then in my early 30s, I want to say 33, 32, or whatever, I was awarded a national lifetime achievement award for my poetry. So where it comes from is my love of words, the
Mhm.
challenge of finding words that can say a lot in a little. We know I can be a very loquacious person. We know that like my poor staff has to edit and tighten up any blog I write, any story I write. My books that I write go through editing. But somehow for poetry, I'm really good at finding concise, precise, small language.
That's important. Restraint.
And
Underrated.
yeah, and I've taught poetry, and I've actually mentored some poets who have books out now as well. But I always remind people, poetry as an art form was written to be read, and you never fully experience a poem until somebody who knows how to read it reads it to you.
Mhm.
It's never the same as just seeing it on paper. So, have I fully over answered your question?
Yes, you have, but I liked hearing about it. So,
So, I don't think I asked people if um, that if they had a poem they would like me to read, because I used to read um I used to I've run a couple of poetry clubs in my
mhm.
history. And one of the ones I read or that I ran, we met once a month, and they would come together, and the requirement was anybody could come. um that was part of the club. It was actually the Columbia Tower Club in Seattle, which has the top 2 floors of the tallest building in Seattle, Washington. So a stunning view and
Like that.
five-star plus food. And they hosted my poetry because I was a member of the club. So we would have wine and appetizers for free as part of it. I mean, it was just one of their benefits. But I would always say, I only want original poetry. Don't come in and read the poem that we've all heard that's in the favorite book. That's great, but this is for people to share poems you would never hear, or they would never get a hearing for. And I would say, if you're not comfortable reading it, give it to me before we start. I'll read it through a couple times in my head, and then you can sit back and experience what's said. And when I edit for poets, like I said, I've worked with a few poets, done some mentoring, edited some poetry. it it happens every time that when I want to edit their poem, I make them listen to it out loud, and they'll stop me and go, "Well, that doesn't sound right." I said, "Yes, but well, that's how you wrote it, and so that's how it's going to be read, and this is why you use punctuation, or you understand rhythm, or you understand because it's a performance art. It's an art and a performance art, and a lot of people have lost sight of that. And of course, we have some people, and it's not mine to say if it is or if it isn't poetry, but they say they put 5 words on a paper and they say, well, that's a poem. It's a thought. Does it, and people are going to call me old fashioned, and I don't give a shit at this point. I'm old. Ah, and I'm always in fashion, so I guess it works. But I do think it is that idea of, I always go, it doesn't make any difference what people feel. As long as somebody felt something from your poetry, it was a success.
Mhm.
Maybe you wrote it and it was sad, but somebody else heard it and it made them feel hopeful. Doesn't make any difference. They don't have to feel sad about your sad poem. If they felt hopeful, it's still successful because they felt something. And in a world where one of our top 10 biggest health issues is emotional constipation,
That is for sure.
the art of poetry is about flowing emotions, moving them, finding a safe way to language them, to say what you need to say and express those emotions, but do it in a way that has a little bit of safety to it, because emotions people can feel are vulnerable.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's hear something.
Well, I pulled up Hidden. It's a slightly longer poem, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. And, at this point, I've written over 1,000 pieces of poetry, so do not ask me why I don't have them all memorized. People go sometimes, don't you know your own poem by heart? I know my poem by heart. And I'm like, well, how many poems have you written? 2? Yeah, try writing 1,000. And then talk to me about, oh, I have them all memorized.
No judgment here. I'm a goldfish. It's all good.
So this goes back to the conversation we heard that we were talking about before, and it's called Hidden. You ask why I do not stay just hidden. It's okay to be me as long as I do not tell you about it. You are sure I am all right in some perverse way. So if I just don't tell you, then you can like me in your ignorance. Speak not of the things you know not, except through the front pages of the supermarket counter magazines. And you are too Christian to want to see me bleed. You gave up that sport hundreds of years ago. But you also do not want to hear about my pain. And do not let you know that I can be human and be one of them, for they are animals. And you know me. For I am your friend that held you when you were in pain, when all the others turned their back, uncomfortable with your grief. Perhaps I am your brother or sister, the aunt or uncle to your children, someone you used to fight with, dream with. Maybe you even took baths with me. I might be a favorite cousin, a treasured school teacher, the person at some point who has changed your life in a positive way. I am your father or mother. I am your child and your friend. And it's okay as long as I am hidden, as long as I perpetuate your fairy tales, discreetly avoid certain conversations, or better yet, even lie. It makes you feel better. It's okay as long as I am hidden, shoved away in dark corners, left in dark alleys, and am not the one that got beaten to death while walking home. It's okay as long as you don't see or hear my pain and can hide in your ignorance. telling yourself your lies, asking me to confirm them. Yes, it is better, better for you. For if you come out of hiding, you might have to grow. Growth is painful, and pain that is mine is easy for you, easier than to risk the pain you might feel if you grow. For in that growth, you might realize that you are not God's only child. And sometimes those people in black robes that spew hate in the name of God might have lied to you. And if they lied to you about that, what else did they lie to you about? Perhaps they do not know the way to heaven. What if you cannot just sit back in stagnation and go to heaven? Maybe you might have to go through the pain of becoming human. No, it is better if it is hidden. Do not work too hard to become human. Do not upset all you've been told. Of course, they are right. And as you drift off to sleep tonight, if you question them, keep it hidden. Do not show your doubts. Feel no pain for anyone but yourself. And fall asleep of dreaming of how you will get your wings, not if.
All right.
Go ahead.
I have a request. Can you read that last couple of lines again? Just want to hear that one more time about the wings.
Yep. Do not show your doubts. Feel no pain for anyone but yourself. And fall asleep tonight dreaming of how you will get your wings, not if.
Hmm. Well, I mean, the obviously because it's written by you. Now, how long ago did you write that?
That was in the early 90s.
Okay. Well, I certainly didn't know you then.
Ew.
No. But I was here. I was a real person.
Barely. You were
Yeah,
barely past a glimmer in your mama's eye. We all
I
know
could drink. I could drink at that point. Um, but what I really appreciated about it as I'm listening is the spirituality woven through it. And a lot of the stuff that the perspectives that I have about becoming a human and and there is no growth without discomfort. And those are things that I believe in fully. And so it's very interesting to hear it in this context too, with, you know, um, the person being spoken to and their discomfort and their lack of growth without the pain.
Yeah. And, obviously it's about staying in the closet,
Yes.
something I never did.
Yeah. Writing a musical in 6th grade.
That's all right. I have an adjustment to my story because of the place that I read the thing, but I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Um, is that what happens is we say we're on the journey of becoming human, like, that's what we're here to do in some way, we're human. And if you really believe in a God of love or that God loves you, expanding that to the fact that God loves everybody, like, and then expanding it to the fact that God made us all perfect the way we were, because no church can control you if you're told you're born perfect and evolving perfection. And
Absolutely, but there are churches that say you're born in sin, and unless you've been baptized and cleansed of your sin, you are, God forbid you die before you're baptized, then you will just go to hell. But, and I believe that we are all, like, us as a collective is God. So we're all a piece of God, and God is perfect. So therefore, like A plus B equals C, we are all perfect just the way we are. Um, and that we are spiritual beings wearing this human suit that we're carrying around, and the human is trying to evolve, learn, grow, experience, all of those things. But bottom line is we're all created in perfection. We're all love.
Yep. And I always call it evolving perfection. And the only time you fall out of evolving perfection, and you can fall out of evolving perfection, is when you dig in and repeat the same thing over and over again because you can't move forward. You keep yourself stuck. It's never a mistake the first time. But the third time you do it in a row and you don't learn from it and you don't change something and you don't ask questions, it kind of starts to fall in the mistake category, you know?
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting timing. Um, yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
So, you know, and I remember I wrote this and I could probably look up the year and I don't have it off the top of my head. I kind of ballparked it, but it's going to fall around the time of the whole Matthew Shepard stuff.
Yeah.
So, and but remember how I told you I won that first award for my poetry when I was like 17?
Yeah.
It was actually 14 because the next poem in the list that was here is the first poem I won an award for, and it's 1974. So I was actually 14 when I won it. I was I was aging myself. I'm like, really?
No rush.
At 14, I was submitting into national poetry contest. Boy, I had some chutzpah. Ah,
It's good. And some beautiful support around you, apparently. Be it human or otherwise. You had some propping up, which is really great.
yeah. I mean, Papa, which I read the poem a couple of weeks ago that I
Yeah.
written recently about him. Papa always supported my poetry, always wanted to hear it, always wanted. I don't care if I wrote a poem. I could. I mean, even as an adult, whenever if I called him and said and was talking and said, "Yeah, I wrote something the other day," he'd be like, "Go get it. I want to hear it." Like he
Beautiful.
always wanted to hear it, and he would always, and he didn't criticize, but he might comment on it a little bit, or he might say, it sounds like that word was a little awkward when you were saying it. Like, are you comfortable with it? But it was all from an act of love. It was never you know, you used the wrong word, you idiot. You know, and I did. My mother once and my stepfather once came to a poetry reading, a public poetry reading I was doing. I was asked to read my poetry someplace, and I read it. And my mother and stepfather, came to sit in the audience and support me. Oh, you and me, Stacy,
Yes, you are.
1960 babies.
That's you and Stace.
Um, but it was very clear at the end of it that they didn't enjoy any of the poetry, but they made the effort to show up and support me. I mean, I give them kudos for that, but poetry was really not their thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, my stepfather kind of was like, "What's the purpose of poetry?" "Oh, I don't know, joy, happiness, like I don't know, like, whatever." So, so do you want to hear the first poem I ever it's less impressive to me today than it was when I wrote it, but that could just be time.
I would love to hear it if you want to share it. Bring it.
Yeah, it's called Just.
Just.
The wind blew today just to clean the air. The clouds rained today just to clean the earth. I cried today just to clean the soul. and there was a rainbow today just to give me hope.
That's beautiful. And I mean, considering it was written a long time ago, 40 plus, it's still perfect for right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, good poems, some poems age and some poems are ageless.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I would love the day when Hidden had aged out, but I don't see it in my lifetime, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, and for the listening audience, just so you know, the viewing audience, I do have Thoughts at 4 a.m., which you're not going to see clearly in the screen because I have the blur on, but it's called Thoughts at 4 a.m. Oh, yeah, you're not going to bad color. All of this is available on Amazon. There, I also have out a book called Thoughts from a Renaissance Man, a book called Spirals. I have a book called Rainbows, which I don't have a copy of with me right now. And then I have a one that's called Beyond Rainbows. And none of those are going to show. Oh, there we
There
go.
you go.
We go. I put it on my face. On my face.
Book face.
And
Um,
then Angst, Drama Queens, and Victimhood, a collection of love poetry.
why don't we take one out of that one? How does that sound? Which is your more recent, the most recent?
The most recent is Thoughts at 4 a.m. But if you choose a page number,
All right, give me how many pages do we have there?
this one has 77 pages.
Oh, well, I was thinking page 65, please.
So there we go. 65. What is that poem? The Siren.
Oh. Huh.
I vaguely hear a melancholy tune sung by a siren of what used to be. Enchanted by the singer, I stop, for it is an illusion of what I choose to remember and not of how things were. It was a poem written by bumping into an ex who wanted to renew acquaintance.
Well, I'll tell you, as you're reading it, I feel energy. That's kind of how I do my readings and that kind of thing. And I wasn't intending to be feeling any of that. But as you started to read it, I started feeling energy immediately. And it went down into like my womb area, my, sacral center and into my solar plexus. So like, sense of self, sexuality, all of that kind of bundled up in it. And so, and as I was listening, I got a total like energetic hit right there from your words. So that makes total sense to me. I like it. And as I was listening to the first part of it, it was to me, and personalizing it for myself, it was a lot about like the siren, the call from the past, but being in the moment, being in the present, and obviously, I mean, the poem's about like realizing that that's your illusion. That's the thought of what it is, maybe not the reality, but your memory. But it was more about, for me, listening to it, not living in the past.
Yep.
Not living in those memories and assuming that you could recreate, because you can never recreate. One thing is for sure, we're moving along.
So, and of course, the problem is I have a ton more poems than I've written that got made it into books yet. And probably 2025 we'll see one or two more books of my poetry come out. And my phone probably has 50 or more poems on it that I just wrote on the fly over the last couple of years. I
Yeah.
can't even get all my old stuff out, let alone. But here's a here's a fun favorite of mine, and then we'll move on to another book, and you can give me another page.
You got
It's called A Gay Man's Epitaph.
it.
When they put me in the ground and erect a slab of marble at my head, it will not talk of vices as the reason I am dead. More likely it will say, cause of death, others. Family who cared, friends who nagged, and inconsiderate lovers. What energy center did that hit?
Oh, I had like my boundary up. Yeah, I was prepared. That's funny. No, that's great. Great word choices. Very concise, showing good restraint, and descriptive.
Yep.
Thumbs up, pun intended.
So, thoughts at 4 a.m. Choose a page.
Hmm. I'm going to stick with the fours. Let's go 44. 4 a.m., 4 4. So 3 fours, angelic number.
Okay. There are 44 pages in this,
Oh,
which is good because this book only has 57 versus 77, so 65 wouldn't have worked. So good
yeah,
call. You must be psychic.
maybe.
Okay, sleep. Here is one of the sad things I have to say. Sometimes I open up one of my poetry books and look at a poem and go, I don't remember this one at all. I will.
She wrote it at 4 a.m.
Yeah. My heart hurts, and my heart hurts. Emotionally, I feel the pain. Physically, I feel the pain. My heart hurts. Tired. My heart is tired, and I am tired. I simply ache, struggling to breathe. Perhaps I am simply catalyzed out. Once upon a time, being a catalyst everywhere I went was exciting. Now it's simply exhausting. Completion. I am just bringing about completion, checking the ticks in the box to be done. Sleep. Good food, good drink, and good conversations. Sleep. Good friends, good lover, good night. Sleep. I officially resign, and all I want to do is sleep.
Well, that's not allowed, the resigning part.
September 15, 2015.
Hmm. Okay. So, with that one, I mean, clearly you were feeling wrung out.
Yeah, you know, um, I can admit that I have a bit of a pattern, and it most recently I broke the pattern with this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But for the majority of my practice, and you know this about me, I'm very passionate about what I do, and I care deeply. And I get a practice going and I work with people, and then it gets to the point where I'm really working more hours and with more people that I can take than I can take the time to refill myself.
Oh, it's energetically draining.
And so the only way that and then I get to the point where I'm like, I just have to stop. I have to take a break. And then I have to figure out how to wind down my clients so they don't feel abandoned or deserted. Because I always tell my clients, if you feel like you need to take a break, take a break. If you need a month off, a couple months off, I said, if you go away for 6 years and come back and say, I'm ready to work, I'm still going to be here. I have people who literally worked with me 34 years ago, and at least once every 5, 7 years, whatever, comes back and does a little more work with me because they're ready for it. And
Yeah.
They just worked with me just within the last 12 months. They did a little work with me because they know they can always come back. And, and it's funny because I'll be like, well, you do remember this is attached to that father issue we worked on and it's coming up with a different. And they're like, how can you friggin' remember that 30 years ago? And I said, because the little file pops open as soon as I pick up the phone and start talking to you, your file is downloaded back in my head.
Yeah. Yep.
But, at 2000 and 2015, I'm trying to think. I was definitely going into a phase, or I was coming out of a phase where I had really been pushing and doing a lot, and I just reached, and in the past, sometimes I would take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year of really, still working in my business and doing stuff, but just at a bare level.
Yep.
And I wasn't doing it because, the other thing, and you understand this, because of me and because of your own practice. I mean, I don't shy away from the tough stuff with my clients. I mean, I'm dealing with people who are told they're dying. I'm working with people that, are trying to actually live a life non-traumatized, that were cult survivors. I get some of the most horrifying stories that I have to take and not take on, but work with and be there.
Right.
And a lot of people that do what I do, though there's some question about, does anybody really do what I do? Does anybody really do what anyone else does? But, I've kind of carved out my own niche in my work in a way. But, it is that I do a depth of work that a lot of people in the New Age community don't get into the trenches like. I get into really the trenches. I'm going to keep going, even if it takes me back to ancestral healing, if it takes me back to past lives, whatever it takes me back. If you're willing to do the work, I'm willing to do the journey. But some of that's pretty heavy shit. And this is one of the other uses of poetry for me, is that I wrote that poem and then I went, okay. And I got up the next day and kept working with clients. So it's a pressure release too. It's like, I'm really tired. I sometimes, I haven't done this for a while, though I have to tell you, I really feel like one of these is coming on, which is to like Friday or Friday afternoon, turn off all my electrical devices, completely unplug for 2 or 3 days, maybe watch movies, maybe read books, maybe just like completely go,
Blah.
The world can survive without me.
I encourage that. By the way, we're down to 1 minute left. This went by super fast today.
So I'm going to share one of my quick little poems, which got the honor place on several refrigerators when I bought it, when I wrote it. And I wrote it when I was, I'm going to say 2021. I'm not sure exactly. I try to date my poems, and in some of my books, I have my poems dated. And it's called But Physically. If you can touch me, but physically, then do not touch me at all. Though my body may respond, my mind will hate you for leaving it behind.
All right.
Every girlfriend of mine, when I read that poem, was like, I want a copy. It would end up on refrigerators. It would end up there like,
yeah.
Can you talk to my boyfriend? Can you talk to the guys I'm dating? Can you?
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's a good one.
Okay. Next week is
Matt
Connerton.
Yep, I will not be here next week. I will miss you guys, but you'll have a fun time without me.
And then the following week, I'm in Chicago, and you are going to be on alone?
I will be on Alone Without You. I will have a guest, but
You'll have a guest, and the
her
guest
name is
is
Lisa Choquette. She will be here. We're going to talk about some beautiful, it's called Orosoma. She'll explain it. Yes. So we'll do that on the 12th. And then I'm away on the 19th. You'll be without me. We're going to keep missing each other, ships passing in the night. But I'll see you at the end of the month together.
Yep, I'll see you. I'll see you in this format in a month.
In a month. Oy.
All right.
All right. Well, until then, I will see you, but I won't see all of you together with him. So we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks
right.
for chiming in.
Thank you for reading your beautiful poetry today.
Who knows? Maybe we'll have another run at this some other show.
I like it. Amazon.com if anybody wants to grab a book. Bye, everyone.